Northern Community Radio in Grand Rapids is exploring the role of women in 21st century rural Minnesota. Strong Women is a regular radio conversation and a podcast. The program is informed by confidential focus groups where women talk about their life experiences and issues like Me Too and why there aren't more women in leadership positions. Here to tell us more is Heidi Holton, News and Public Affairs Director at Northern Community Radio. And Laura Connolly is facilitator of the Strong Women focus groups and was recently named a change maker by the Minnesota Women's Press. And welcome. Thanks for being here and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Heidi, maybe you can start with us and just talk about strong women in general and where that whole idea originated.
I think it was when, the Me Too movement was starting. We were hearing a lot about it, and it was especially having to do with Hollywood and things that seemed very far away from rural northern Minnesota. But we knew that those kinds of things were going on, but women don't always have the place to talk about it or be asked about what workplace is like or what their roles are like, why they haven't moved into leadership maybe in the way that they thought they could in a rural area. So we wanted to start listening to women and see what they had to say.
So Laura, what kind of stories are you hearing from these women?
So we're hearing a lot of different stories, and it kind of depends a little bit on the focus of the focus groups. The first one that we did was very specific around, we knew the Me Too movement was happening, and we both kind of wanted to look at it and talk to women about, is the fact that this is being named in Hollywood making a difference in your lives?
And what did you find out? What are you hearing?
No.
Oh,
it wasn't. It maybe is talked about, in a magazine or something, but it was very far from regular life. And when we had a group of women, we did 3 groups to begin with, all different ages, from college age up to retired women. We asked if any of them had been through something like this, and every woman, every woman in the room nodded their head.
So there are laws against sexual harassment. Are they just not working, or people are afraid to report things that happen? What's happening that makes it really not catching on here in this region?
Well, I don't think it's just this region, but what we were hearing, so we've been moving around in the listening area of KEXC, KBXC, so we were doing some of these in Bemidji. And I remember one woman who, she's a single mom, accomplished, a teacher, but had gone through some really difficult times with her principal and felt like she was not in a place where she could say something. Yes, there are laws, but she would lose her job. She knew she would lose her job, and that would jeopardize her family. And so she finally got to a point, I think she said she needed to say something, but nothing good came of it. She ended up having to move to another job. She was ostracized by the rest of the school.
So have you learned that sexual harassment is a culture that is brewing not only in this area, but everywhere?
This is why Laura's great to have with. I may ask the first question of women, but as we listen to it, Laura's able to pull out what the answers mean. So she will, for instance, if someone tells us something like that, she'll ask the why. You might give an example of that.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that, yes, it's a cultural problem. It's a social problem. So when just one person is experiencing something, that you can call that an individual problem. But when you see, just millions of women saying that this is happening to them, then it's a social problem. And I think that just the nature of getting a group of women together and giving them the opportunity to talk to each other about it reveals the social nature of it, and it allows women to see, oh, this isn't about something as individually wrong with me, that's why this is happening. It's because of the way in which our society is put together and what we're taught as a people.
Do they open up more as a group?
Yeah, we've never had a problem with people opening up. No. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. I think, it's the way we're facilitating it. And I also think that part of it is that, partnering with KEXC to do this, they're already a trusted community organization. So people feel safe and trust what's going to happen with what they say. But the group dynamic is that for one woman to hear another woman tell a story and she's experienced pretty much exactly the same thing is very eye-opening.
I didn't realize before Laura was kind of exploring this with us that women tend to do that to themselves. If they haven't accomplished something, if they haven't gotten to where they thought they should be, they think it's their own fault. They don't think it's that this system isn't really set up for them.
So is the focus group made up of the same women every time, so that so there's not like an ongoing building
Right.
of trust?
No, it's just new
Do you have an
women.
open call, or how do you get the
Open
people?
call. Yep. And we maybe ask some people we know who we think might enjoy coming, but some of the towns, we're going to Brainerd in February, and we have a contact with someone there who will bring some people, but then we will make an open call on the radio and see who shows up.
And are you getting a real broad spectrum of people from different life experiences and professions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have seen people of many different ages. We saw a very young woman in our last group who you could tell she was just soaking in everything the older women were saying. And she was asking questions like, I don't even know how to start. I don't know what to do. Maybe you can give me some advice.
You're not broadcasting these sessions.
No, so what we do is we don't broadcast it, we listen, we take notes, and then Laura and I get together and we talk about what we heard and maybe what some of the commonalities are, and then she and I have a conversation
On
on
the radio?
air. Yep, and that is no names or anything
Sure,
like that
sure.
people would know. And so I think it's really important. But we also do once a month conversations with a specific woman for the Strong Women Project about their leadership. But in this instance, I just think it's a very easy way for women to be able to talk to each other, and it's meant a lot to them when they've left the room.
Is that confidentiality piece of it really important in terms of getting people to show up and be honest in their conversations?
I think it is for some people, yes. I think other people, they aren't so worried about that. And we have had some people who come to each one, right? So there are women who really are getting a lot out of it and they keep coming, but it's open.
Yeah.
You said you started with a conversation about the Me Too movement. Are there other questions that you have in mind that you really want to explore and examine as this series continues?
I think we could explore the ones we've done before, we could do again, but probably the ones that stood out the most for me, we called it Speak Up Lady. And we talked about how do women communicate in groups especially. So we find that women tend to apologize quite a bit more than men do. They may be in a group setting, if you go to a community meeting or something, women tend to not speak up as much. They're definitely almost never going to be the first person to talk at a meeting, and they're going to feel like, unless I know this is absolutely factual, I'm not going to say anything. And that was a really interesting thing for women to realize, again, that wasn't them as an individual. This is kind of how we've been raised, to make sure you know what you're talking about, make sure you understand it.
Yeah.
Heidi, you mentioned earlier on that a school teacher was afraid to report her principal.
Yeah.
Particularly in the workplace, it sounds like then there's a price women pay if they should report. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I think that there's a price that women pay all the time if they speak up against stuff that's happening to them, because they aren't automatically believed and oftentimes are blamed for what has happened. You know, maybe it's the way you dressed, or maybe it's the way you were acting, or why didn't you say something?
Does that make the woman then feel guilty?
I think so. I mean, that's what we're hearing. And I think just the way women are put together, their consciousness is put together in our society, is coming from kind of this place of lack, right? So we are all carrying around some level of self-hatred within us because we've been told our whole lives your bodies aren't right, or your thinking is messed up, or you're irrational. So when stuff happens to you that shouldn't happen to you, you automatically kind of first blame yourself.
You started, Heidi, by talking about how the Me Too movement seemed very far away for many of the women in the smaller communities up here. Are there some specific women's issues that really manifest themselves more in rural areas than maybe on the coasts or in Hollywood?
That is a good question. Maybe Laura can help me with that.
I think, isolation is a huge thing. So we aren't able to talk with each other as much about what's going on with us. I do think that there is some level of more traditional kind of men should be in charge, in power, still happening in rural places that might be more so than, I think it's everywhere, but
Yeah.
I think that'd be a
Yeah.
common thing.
How can people, number one, get involved in the conversations as the focus group, and number two, access them on the radio or the podcasts that you're
Yeah.
putting together?
We actually, we do have a podcast, and some of it is conversation just between Laura and I that is not on the radio, so it's a little more, we can get deeper into things. So that's available at our website. And we put up when we have another group coming up. We have at least 2 more. We're going to do a storytelling event this spring that will be honoring grandmothers, and kind of a TED Talk with women talking for 4 minutes about their grandmothers and what they meant to them and how that led to their strengths. So we're very excited about that. But it's all, you can find it at our website or follow us on social media.
And is this something that you see continuing beyond the near term into the long term?
I hope so. There's a lot more to do, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, we met with college age girls, and I think both Laura and I were surprised. I think we felt like they probably are more with it. They probably don't have these things, and we realized they were also being told, don't go out at night, be afraid, something bad might be out there. And we started to talk to them about that and realized that's limiting what they end up doing because
You've
they're
mentioned
afraid.
grandparents, now you've mentioned very younger people.
yes.
So this is generational.
It is, yeah. I think we're all learning from each other as we listen. I think that's probably the main thing coming from it. I think people feel honored to be listened to.
All right. Well, we have really enjoyed listening to you tonight, and as a mother of 3 young adult women daughters, I thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.